Hello, class. I'm Jeremy Beachy. This is Psychology 600. We're with Professor Bowman. Today we're going to talk about Philip Markoff, also known as the Craigslist killer, and we're going to look at his behavior or his alleged behavior and try to explain it through a personality theory. So the personality theory that we're going to look at is known as reciprocal determinism personality theory. This theory was actually created by Albert Bandura. And Albert Bandura is a cognitive psychologist that has attempted to explain personality, and with it, behavior, through a theory known as reciprocal determinism theory. And what this theory says essentially is that, like nature and nurture, both helping to determine who we are as an individual, cognition, environment, and behavior all play a similar and possibly equal part in who we are as individuals. Unlike other theories that suggest that we are merely products of our environment, reacting to the environment and being determined by environmental situations, Bandura suggests more. He suggests that our actions are actually controlled by thought, and that our actions help to shape our environment. At the same time, environmental stimulus can elicit our thought and further determine our action, which again helps reshape our environment. Still going further, we can look at accidental behavior, and by that I mean acting in a way that was unintended. Say one meant to grab a cup, but yet they accidentally knocked that cup over. Well, now one has inadvertently altered his or her environment. And in doing so, they have created new thought. They have to react to the spilt drink that was in the cup. And how are they going to react? They have to process that in their mind. So that in turn has created a new behavioral reaction. If a person wakes up having fully intended to go to work the night before, and suddenly feels the desire to call off work, and we can probably all relate to this. At some point in our lives, we went to bed feeling good and thinking, I am going to work tomorrow, and you wake up the next day and you're not feeling it for whatever reason. You don't even know why. You just don't want to go into work. And so what you do is you call into work and you claim to your boss that you're sick. Well, now, instead of going to work, a person that does that is free to do whatever they want. They have the entire day to do whatever they want. However, the person may feel guilty about calling off and not enjoy their time off. They might spend all day dreading going into work the next day because they know they weren't really sick. And in return, they don't want to ever do that again. On the flip side of that, someone else may find some kind of satisfaction out of doing that and continue the behavior. Philip Markoff was born to Susan and Richard Markoff. Richard Markoff is a dentist in New York. He has an older brother by the name of John. Philip also graduated high school with honors, having been a member of various school clubs and teams. Markoff went on to graduate from SUNY Albany as a pre-med student. And at the time of being accused of various crimes, he was a med student at Boston University School of Medicine. So up to that point, Markoff had no criminal history, and by all accounts, he was a good person. Everybody that knew him would testify that he was a good person. He was obviously an intelligent person, and no one would believe that he would end up being the person that he was accused of being. Markoff even had a fiancée, Megan McAllister, whom he planned to marry in 2009. But Markoff eventually became accused of being a sexual deviant, a violent murderer, and later of committing suicide. Markoff was accused of committing a string of robberies and rapes, as well as a murder that led to Markoff becoming the prime suspect in these violent crimes as a result of security footage, cell phone data, email IP trails, which the police say led them to believe that Markoff was the perpetrator of these crimes. Markoff was accused of responding to Craigslist ads and following up with the previously mentioned crimes. So he would see an ad in Craigslist, he would respond to the ad, and he would commit these violent crimes. After having been arrested, Markoff, while sitting in jail, made several suicide attempts, or he was accused of making several suicide attempts, and he was finally successful, or he expired in prison, but it was suggested that he committed suicide in 2010 whilst awaiting trial for the crimes that he had been accused of. So for this purpose, we're going to assume that Markoff was a sexual deviant, a violent murderer, and committed suicide. A well-to-do kid who was intelligent, that everybody liked, ended up becoming a sexual deviant, a violent murderer, and committing suicide. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But let's try to make some sense out of it. If one looks at Markoff's life, from what we can know about it as outsiders looking in, not having known him personally, it's easy to wonder where a young man with such a seemingly bright future might have went wrong. It's not uncommon for people to have different sexual fantasies. But assuming Markoff is guilty, when Markoff decided to look through the Craigslist ads and he found the ads for Female Company, he made the decision to respond to these ads. And what this did was set in motion certain environmental events, and these events became a reality. Markoff began turning fantasy into reality. Markoff likely felt some type of pleasure from the first encounter, which led to the second encounter and the third encounter. However, the first encounter, providing some kind of gratification or pleasure, led to a change in cognition and behavior. Had Markoff chosen not to act on these deviant desires and instead ignore them or seek help from a professional, then Markoff may be a successful doctor at this time and have a family today. The same could be said for the Craigslist ads, in that if they had not been placed, Markoff may have had different thoughts and reactions leading to different behaviors and different changes in personality in the coming weeks, months, years, and be a successful doctor today. Each of these personality factors, being cognition, environment, and behavior, led up to the robberies, the sexual assaults, the murders, the suicide. Each of these equally played a part in determining who Markoff would ultimately become and leading to his demise. Where this changes is in which of these three influences influenced which. It could have been cognition, environment, and behavior. It could have been environment, behavior, and cognition. It could have been behavior, cognition, and environment, or any number of combinations of the three. But what this does is explain how Markoff went from being this decent person, intelligent person, to being a person who was accused of violent crimes. Markov's choices led to certain behaviors, and certain environmental stimuli led to more choices and more behaviors. And these behaviors might have been reinforced by some type of gratification, which reinforced certain thoughts and led to more behaviors. But this explains why Markov at one point was a well-respected family member, a fiancé and student, and later became an accused sexual deviant and murderer, leaving those who knew him in disbelief. Thank you.